What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome back for some more Fire Emblem Heroes, and this is going to be my in-depth analysis and review of the Legendary Caeda banner, and I'll be rating these units based on their potential as well as their fodder. So we have Legendary Caeda as the new water legendary unit, and she actually comes with a new effect if you actually look at her icon. So she provides you with the pair up effect as well as giving you speed. So this might mean that not only she functions as a pair up unit, but any unit who's on the team in the water season with the water blessing is going to be getting +3 speed or extra speed from her, and most likely some extra HP as well. So this is pretty much an upgrade of the pair up effect, which didn't really give any kind of stats, and she is present here as a lance flyer, which is to be expected out of her. That's her main class, and we have got wing lifted spear as her preferred weapon. This weapon is effective on armor units and cavalry units, and it does have Canto 2 built into it. It also provides her with +3 attack, and she can easily get +5 to all of her stats during the combat, and then she also has a binding necklace effect in her weapon. Now binding necklace is a preferred skill of Freya, and what that does is basically steals any kind of visible buffs of the opponent and gives that to the unit herself, and also inflicts penalty on the opponent. So you could consider it like a buff stealer. This effect is really good in arena where rallies are very common, so in any kind of game mode where visible buffs are common, this kind of effect is going to be giving you a lot of mileage. So she can function really well in arena as well as Summoner Duels, for example, which has got a lot of visible buffs most of the time. So she can just steal those buffs and just apply it on herself and also debuff the opponent during the combat. So very solid effect, and the Canto does allow her to have better mobility in the player phase, and then of course getting the effective damage against armor and cavalry units will have good synergy with her exclusive slot B skill, as we'll see. She has got Distant Storm, which is basically a push skill, but it has got Distant Counter built into it, so it can give you +5 attack in both phases, but only until if she's above 25% HP. So you gotta maintain that HP threshold on her, and then she's got her exclusive skill, Faithful Loyalty. So this skill can basically give her an instant vantage against armored and cavalry units. So if she's going to be facing any of those units, she's always going to be attacking first. But if the opponent has got something like a Hardy Bearing, then of course Vantage is not going to be going first, because Hardy Bearing does disable Vantage effects. And it also has partial null follow-up built into it, so she can just get past the follow-up negation effects and still double those opponents. That is always really useful. And then after the combat, she can give herself the Vantage effect. So this Vantage effect is going to be there for one turn, so she's not going to be immediately having the instant Vantage against everyone. Once she enters the combat, she can get this effect and then have the Vantage for that turn. So Vantage is really helpful, especially when you can trigger it from full HP. So with her effective damage, she can definitely one-shot a lot of threats like Ninja Corrin, for example, which are going to be seen quite a lot in arena, and especially if she gets on a Hero Rises banner. And then finally, she's got Attack Defense Rain. So overall, Legendary Caeda's playstyle is mixed phase. She wants to use Canto to position herself, she wants to use the Vantage built into her slot B skill, and also wants to use her effective damage. Vantage can be a really powerful strategy, but if you fail to one-shot the opponent through your Vantage, then it can often mean your own demise, because her bulk is not going to be too high, as you'll see in a moment. So she's most likely going to be dying if she doesn't really one-shot something. And in the water season, there are going to be units like Legendary Dimitri and Legendary Crom who do not have the weakness to her effective damage, and they also have pretty nice physical bulk. So here we are shown her Vantage in action. So this instant Vantage can also work at full HP because she's facing a Cavalier. So that is going to be triggering, and she can just hit them really hard with her effective damage. So that is Caeda, and let's take a look at what her stat spread might look like. I pretty much tried to calc this off based on the enemies that we faced, so I'm pretty confident in this speculation. I think that she's going to be having around base 38 attack, and then her weapon can give her the 16 might and then extra 3 attack. And Distant Storm can also give her 5 attack, so she basically stacks up a lot of attack, and that's what you should be doing with her. So she can be really good in arena and Summoner Duels especially. In those game modes, visible buffs are also common, so she can make use of the buff stealer in a way. And her defense is not going to be too high, so as I was saying before, in the water season, it is going to be a bit annoying for her to face someone like Legendary Crom, for example, who is going to be pretty bulky and also is an archer. So if you do not one-shot those kinds of opponents, then they can just kill you after living your hit. So you always have to watch out for that with your Vantage strategy. Overall, Legendary Caeda in my opinion is a pretty solid unit. I wouldn't really say that she's insanely strong or too weak. She's just in the right middle ground where she is really solid and does what she's supposed to do with her base kit, but there are definitely going to be some shortcomings of her with this playstyle and her base kit. She can also be used in Ether Raids. If you face a lot of cavalry units, then she can of course be helpful with her effective damage, especially if you face like a cav line or something like that with Legendary Sigurd, Ninja Corrin, Winter Lysithea, stuff like that. So she can be really helpful right there because of her Vantage effect and the fact that she's got the weapon strangle advantage against many of the prominent cavaliers, and also just having the effective damage against them. So in Ether Raids, whenever there's water season, she could be useful, and of course in Summoner Duels and Arena, I think she's more tailored towards that, especially in Arena where she can score 190 BST because of having 300 SP slot B skill. So if you run a 300 SP slot A and slot C skill, then you can have better scoring as a legendary unit because of that exclusive slot B skill. So I think there she's going to be shining a lot as a scoring unit. And her base kit is pretty good, but in Arena you can obviously run Joint Drive Attack or Attack Defense Menace. And in her Sacred Seal you always want to run something that can give you extra attack for that Vantage strategy. And preferably something that can actually work in both phases so that she can use that in the player phase and use Canto and then Vantage remaining units. So that is pretty much Legendary Caeda. I'm actually quite happy with her implementation. She seems like a solid unit, but nothing really too oppressive in my personal opinion. Now let's take a look at some of the other units present on this banner. Legendary Fae is a pretty nice dragon in the Earth season, and her Dazzling Breath does allow her to have follow-up negation and get some in-combat debuffs on the opponent, and it also has the guard effect built into it. With life unending pretty much giving her an extra life, she can be pretty bulky with her weapon, and her fodder is really top tier with Distant Stance, which is essentially going to be an upgrade of Distant Counter with no drawbacks. If you compare it to something like Distant Storm, for example, which has the recall damage, Distant Stance just gives you +5 resistance. She also has Defense Res Menace and also Dragon's Ire, so very useful unit in terms of fodder and pretty nice unit herself. In the blue pool, we also have Nott, who's actually going to be getting a banner next month as well as a revival. But here she's present in the Legendary banner in the blue pool, and she's a top tier unit in the dark season. She's a must have in my opinion if you're trying to stay competitive. And even in Summoner Duels, she's a really good unit because of that Pathfinder. And Rimfaxi basically has the bonus doubler built into it, which does have good synergy with the visible buffs and the attack speed menace. And then Moon Twin Wing pretty much gives her the damage reduction and some in-combat debuffs, so that can make her pretty fast and overall a pretty solid all-rounded unit. Her fodder is also really top tier in Distant Counter and Attack Speed Menace, which you could inherit at the same time. Ascended Laegjarn is easily one of the best bow cavaliers in the entire game because of the fact that how offensive she can be and how deceptively bulky she's also with her weapon. So Flame of Muspel can give her a bunch of extra stats depending on the visible buffs of the opponent as well as her own visible buffs. So Rouse Attack Speed 4 does have pretty good synergy with this, and she also has partial null follow-up built into her weapon. So in case you don't want to use the trace skill, you can always try Windsweep. And she's really good in something like Ether Raid's defense, for example, where she can be a big threat for the opponents who use visible buffs, and she can also be pretty bulky with that weapon. She's also quite decent in Arena and Summoner Duels, and her fodder is pretty nice with Susparo 3, the Fortress skill, and the Rouse Attack Speed 4. We did recently get you with Rouse Attack Speed 4, so he could be foddered off if you just want to get this Rouse skill and like a premium skill like the Ideal skill. Laegjarn here can provide you the Susparo 3 and Fortress skill at the same time, or the Rouse skill depending if you have inherited the prerequisite skills of these passives. So her fodder is pretty nice, but the thing with Fortress is that it's not really as good as Neotrace because it doesn't have the Canto remaining +1 movement. So if you exhaust all of your movement, then you don't really get any Canto out of it. Of course, you can still use this strategically by exhausting all of your movement and then dancing her up, but most of the time the flat Canto or the remaining +1 movement trace is a lot more useful. Still overall a very solid unit and a pretty nice fodder. Legendary Corrin is a nice mixed phase dragon, and Primordial Breath and Negating Fang can pretty much make her into this kind of mixed phase dragon. and because of being colorless, she can function as a pretty nice tank. And Negating Fang is one of those damage reduction specials which doesn't get cut through by Deadeye or Lethality, so that can always be useful. But still, even with that special, don't really expect Legendary Corrin to be insanely bulky because a lot of her stats are gone into her speed as well to make her faster, and oftentimes her fast speed can basically act as a defensive stat where she can prevent the doubles, and she can always use stuff like null follow up. But if you want to get more bulky with her, then Dragon Wall is a pretty popular option for her slot B at max investment and high investment. Her fodder is extremely good with Distant Counter and Jaw and Drive Attack. Both of these are universal skills that can be found on a lot of builds for a lot of game modes, especially for Arena where they can contribute to higher scoring. With all of the far save going around, Legendary Leif does have a bit of trouble at times breaking through some of the popular far save tanks, but still he can function as a pretty solid Brave Bow Archer with this kind of preferred weapon, and this is a dual phase Brave weapon, so he can also use this in the enemy phase, but most of the time you're going to be focusing in his player phase. And it's worth noting that his Master Bow does have the impact effect if he's under player's control, and now with Summoner Duels, he's essentially always going to be in the player's control in that game mode, so he can get the impact effect pretty much all the time. So he can get that impact effect in Summoner Duels, which is definitely something you have to watch out for whenever you're going to be facing him. His fodder is kind of underwhelming with attack resistance push and defense smoke, the latter being found in the normal summoning pool as well on Wrath, and then also present on Pain in the Grail pool. Astrid is a pretty nice support unit who can provide you with the bonus doubler as well as the extra 1 movement whenever she uses a rally skill on a target, and that can help you stat stack with the bonus doubler and the extra buffs that she can provide, and also helps you with the mobility with the extra 1 movement. So overall a really nice support, but unfortunately her fodder is not the best. It's decent with the double rally skill and the roof skill. Speed defense bond, I would say that is not really all that good as a bond skill, and you're never really going to be seeing this too much compared to the other bond skills. Triandra is still a pretty solid Dark Mythic unit, but unfortunately she does have her shortcomings in the form of being isolated by Mila because of her low defense, and the fact that she's really offensive sometimes means that she's going to be going on to attack the opponent instead of dancing. But still, she is a pretty nice mythic unit and a mythic dancer at that, so that is always really helpful and useful, and her fodder is really nice for any kind of fast mage with speed resistance rain and the attack speed push skill. Legendary Edelgard definitely saw a lot of phases in her lifetime, so she got Fallen Edelgard as her competitor, and then we also have the save skills, and usually the armor units are going to be fit into that save skill archetype most of the time, and if not, then something like Fallen Edelgard is going to be blessable and is more flexible where you can still get her Blazing Storm even if you're near an ally as long as you're transformed. The Legendary Edelgard here is a fire legendary unit, but unfortunately she doesn't really do too well in Arena as a scoring unit because she's got this solo armor playstyle which is not the easiest to use in a game mode like Arena where you're gonna get pressured a ton and you're not gonna be having the chances of having that solo playstyle. Her fodder is also kind of underwhelming with just attack resistance solo and armored stride. So yeah, armored stride doesn't really go too well, like I said, in this save metagame, and then the solo skill can be found on a bunch of other units. Malice is a new gen sword infantry unit, but unfortunately she has a ton of competition in form of Brave Marth and also Legendary Marth who did get a remix, so she's pretty much like this mercenary who you give more dragon flowers to, and she's going to be getting more stats and effects. So she can get Null Guard and Null Special Acceleration whenever you give her 2 or more Dragon Flowers, so that can allow her to use her specials consistently, and that is always going to be a nice effect to have. But like I said, the competition is really fierce, and as for her fodder, she does provide you with attack speed push 4 and Spurn. Unfortunately, I would say that a lot of the tanks who are trying to tank with Spurn are not going to be appreciating the recall damage of a push skill. So it can be a bit annoying at times, but still, it is overall a good fodder that can be used on many speedy units. Reginn is easily one of the best Astro Mythics in the game right now, not only in Ether Raids but can also be used really well in Summoner Duels as well, and the fact that she's got Saether Shell that can do adaptive damage is always going to be really good, and she also has that fixed Canto movement and also Canto 3 at that, so that is extremely useful for mobility and for utility. Her fodder is also really good with Susparrow 3 and Lulled Speed Defense, which could be used on any kind of fast offensive unit. Finally, we end off the red pool and the units on this banner with Sothis. Sothis needs a ton of help with some kind of remix and refine, because at this moment she doesn't really do too much, and even if you face her at +10 merch, she's not really going to be the biggest threat that you'll face. So she's got a lot of shortcomings, and especially as a Dark Mythic unit, she's not the most threatening unit to be placed on Aether Raid's defense, and a lot of times Ramimon, Nott, Triandra are all, just better options. Sothis being a melee unit doesn't really provide with any kind of degenerate playstyle, and it's not the hardest to tank Sothis. Her main fodder is going to be Time Pulse, which is a really good skill, and that's mainly what she's going to be used for if you're going to be foddering her off. Overall, this banner is rather skippable, that too before a Hero Rises banner. Still, it does provide you with solid value on the blue color, having the earth and the water legendary color sharing, so if you're trying to complete your merge projects, then that could be useful. Colorless also has wind and water color sharing, so if you're trying to complete your Legendary Corrin or Legendary Leif, that could be useful. And Caeda could be a nice one-off spark unit if you do have Fade Pass. She could definitely be really useful in Summoner Duels and Summoner Duels S, just as a one-off copy even. And the red and the green pool is unfortunately not going to be that impressive, and there's going to be 1 or 2 duds for most people there. The next month we're going to be getting a Hero Rises banner. We are going to be starting the voting gauntlet for it, and that is going to be appearing to be a really stacked banner because it can have multiple green units or even all green units, so that will have really good odds of getting 5 stars. And then if you're trying to get Nott, then she's going to be getting her Forging Bonds revival next month, so that does have that spark and it does have better odds of getting Nott than this legendary banner. And there could be a potential 3 houses banner because since the last 2 years in March we have got a 3 houses banner, so seeing that pattern, it could be possible. And then Legendary Azura and Legendary Alm are going to be getting their remixes and potentially their weapon refines as well. And then the spring seasonal banner is also going to be there. So March has got a lot of banners going, so that's why I don't really see many people summoning on this banner unless they are big Caeda fans and they've been waiting for this legendary alt. It's also worth noting that next month there's going to be no mythic unit. Instead, at the end of March, we're going to be getting a legendary unit. They've officially said that, and that banner could be useful for many people because it could end up being like an earth colorless unit who's going to be color sharing with Ash and Mila, so that could be really helpful. It could even be a red unit with Legendary Sigurd and Legendary Lilina color sharing, so look forward to that if you do care about getting another legendary unit, and that's kind of next month's legendary hero banner. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this banner review and analysis. Make sure to share this video with your friends if they are pulling on this banner or they are trying to use any of these units. And if you enjoyed, then make sure to leave a like and a comment. Helps me tremendously, and if you really enjoyed, you could always support me directly by using super thanks or by becoming a YouTube member. And for more FE videos, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as a Red Cavalier against Legendary Caeda. So with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.